Hello everyone, it's Cheryl Millett here, live at 5 Mondays. And I guess since this event, it's been happening more often, but here we are. It's Monday. Who knew? A long weekend here in Ontario, but also somewhat of a rainy, sunny. It's great for the plants. Today I put up words like long and short and round and referring to shapes. And the idea with all of that is, what's the long story here? What's the short story here? What do we keep going around and around about in certain scenarios historically as well? And this sometimes will give us the best insight. As they say, history, know your history, know your history. The idea is we have been going around on certain things, and things have been continuously happening as well. And these are the things that are eventually, they're just kind of coming out. Like things are, and what did they say? What comes around goes around. And so these things are really, this is such a great unfolding in a sense of, the long stories. It takes a little bit longer to get into understanding maybe what's going on here and why. Like, why this? We're going to feel like at times that we've gotten to the end of our line, right? So it's like we're going to get shorter as far as just how much time things take sometimes. And certainly I've heard about people getting frustrated, and understandable that it is not as clear as of a story for everybody to kind of understand. And that's the interesting side of things, is sometimes people, I know from health, so I can draw in from the aspect of health. When people will say, well, what's going on? Or tell me why I have this. And the idea is it is different for different people as to why you have it. I mean, the critical thing is thinking about how things manifest from, and if you think of the placebo effect, from just the amount of stress that we would have. But the stress comes differently and for different reasons for different people. And that's why it's not as easy to, put the finger on it when some people just want a textbook answer. And this is the same with this event. There is no textbook answer. It's very plain, very clear. There's no textbook answer. Part of the reason is we come in to any situation, come into any unfolding. In this case, it's life. In this case, it's even more on the global standpoint. And these beliefs that we come in with can be shattered completely, can be rocked, rock our boat. And that doesn't make it easy, because what happens is the mind and the egoic mind will start, will start chattering in our heads. We think it's us thinking, and in some ways it is, but it is based on many things that kind of come to play. Why you believe something, why you don't believe other things, why it's easy to believe one thing and so difficult to believe other things. So the idea with this event, instead of just kind of going around and around in circles here, is the long story is, in some ways, it means a lot of research. It means a lot of reading. It means doing all the research and reading that some others that we do trust, that we may have been following, we may have been listening to. And even then, the long story of it is we each and every one of us has to put in the time to better understand how things are working. And it's no different with the body. I put the book together, but the book has to be read by you. There's no short story. In fact, 450 pages, that's short. Like, it could have been easily 1,000 pages, this book, easily, very easily. But that's the short of it is, the short of it does exist, and we want to take shortcuts, but there is no shortcuts, really. The idea is we have to do some, do our own research, do our own reading, and pay attention and sit back and observe and see what everybody else is saying. And then there's going to be the element of what you know to be true and then what other people are kind of saying. So kind of get the picture. But I see that there's definitely expectations that kind of come with more research and listening to various things and people. And we'd all like to have that crystal ball. We'd all like to have that crystal ball. But what fun would that be if you, in your life, knew exactly what was going to happen next week? The idea of just knowing what's going to happen next week, as in definitive, that is the way it's going to work out, wouldn't be any fun. That would take the fun away in life. So the idea is to be present, as they say. You be present. The future has, if you think about yourself, and this is where the roundness in the circle, if you were standing in one point, and this is a story that you've heard, you're looking in one direction, but you deviate just 1 degree and then start walking on your path. It's a completely different scenery. You'll end up in a completely different place the further out you go. But imagine life as you're standing and you have 360 degrees of possibilities. It's your choice. And whichever way you go, well, you're in a new circle. You're in this new round space, and you have another myriad of different choices as much as the next day, right? So the ideas that we think, the creative ideas, the people that we meet can change things and give us different directions and different yeah, I mean, I knew I was going to be teaching more online just because of this, one of the positive things, but I figured, okay, I have to just do it myself, and just like I did the YDAN, and I would be, but then this academy came in, and this changed everything. I was like, wow, now there's this platform. I don't have to create, and it's going to be, how can I say it? It's part of a bigger picture, right? It's not just me. It's part of a bigger picture. I could not have anticipated that. Even if I had sat and meditated for X number of hours, there's no way I could have participated. Just anticipated or thought this was going to happen or not. And we would waste our energy trying to do that. So the idea is to stay present. The long story of it is you stay present, and a person would imagine what they want. So things are kind of popping in, and you imagine what you want, and you're open for more. You're open for something else. And you say more, something else. It could be that I mean, if I just think of numbers, it's very easy to kind of go, okay, yeah, $100 or something. But meanwhile, it could be 110. So I'm just focusing on imagining $100, $100. But it could be 110, it could be 120, it could be 200. So when we're imagining, we leave ourselves open for more. And then maybe it's not the $100. Maybe it's somebody gives me a lottery ticket. All right, it's not the $100 cash, but I get the lottery ticket, which could be worth, if you win, it could be worth a lot more. So you see how that changed it up. I didn't get the $100 cash that I was trying to imagine and think, but I got this lottery ticket, which goes on and maybe win whatever, $100,000, something like that. And this, and this is kind of how it can play. But there's a lot of energy spent trying to control what we want, and when it happens, and how it happens, and how far in the past. So this event, if we stay present in the moment, I'm going to talk about a few things that kind of came up because I've been watching a little bit of video and stuff like that, then we're not going to waste as much energy. This is the truth of it. So the idea that the fears continuously come in and definitely are hugely embedded for a lot of people, these fears of, in this case, the COVID-19. These fears are causing all kinds of scenarios. People would need to go to the hospital, don't go to the hospital because they fear they're going to die of COVID. Well, they're going to die of a heart attack, and that has happened. And I think there was 35 cases here in Toronto, this was weeks ago, where they determined that these people unnecessarily died because they couldn't get the help they needed. And maybe that's partially because they stayed home, partially because they couldn't get in because of things closed down. I don't know, that kind of scenario. But the idea is there's this talk. Now, we've already got the fear embedded in a number of people, and then there's the talk of the future. You see, the future is unknown, and this whole thing was unknown. I mean, if you stood back in time, which can be very helpful, standing back in time gave us this understanding where millions of people were going to die, but that didn't happen. But the idea is the fear, as they say, it's the ship left the port, the plane left the ground, and so we have this scenario where we have all this fear. The people themselves, no matter what they're being told by their doctors, there's no way around it. The anxiety and the fear and the worry and give me drugs and all of this is taken root. That's the best way to look at it. We don't want it to grow into a big tree. That's an important thing to imagine. We don't want it to grow in a tree. We want to, yes, there's the root, but the root can be pulled up, right? The root can be pulled out. It can be pulled up. You can do things to roots so they don't grow anymore. You don't water them. There's no water. So we don't want to feed. We don't want to water this fear. And this is, I think, very important, where we can share bits of it's almost like dribbling, right? Or dribbling information in such a way. Did you hear? Did you hear? Did you hear? Did you hear? And this, I think, is so valuable. Like, I think most people here, and you can say so, are probably on board that this isn't a pandemic, that the wearing the mask is not warranted because it's not a pandemic, and that going back to school should be completely normal, and that's just the way it seems to be on in a certain group of people. But I mean, if there's other people listening to this, the idea is need to do the research outside of the mainstream media. You need to understand a few things about, just step back into time and understand at first it was unknown, and they assumed, or by certain models, as they can be very faulty, as the people who build the models can be faulty, the information that goes into the models are faulty, and therefore you can come up with completely offside numbers, which happen. So let's not say it happened on purpose. Let's say it happened accidentally, to be kind and compassionate to other people. The idea is it isn't a pandemic. They keep calling it a pandemic, but it's not a pandemic, and they talk about the future as in the second wave. And so these are the things to be cognizant of, is the fear should be rooted out, and in the best way it can, and probably at different times for different people. And then at the same time, dribble information where people can start to make sense of some things. But the long story for some of these things, you watch these videos, unless you have a lot of background information or some background information, it seems like it's out there or gobbledygook, and there's a lot more questions because of not having the history and being on top of some of the things that are happening. The interesting news that's kind of happening more and more, and I see it, is that Trump is being put in a different light these days for more and more people, and that's helping the cause, in a sense of rooting up the fear that's being spread. So that's very helpful. And it is a little bit still challenging for some people, even on some other fronts, just who he is and how he's behaving in some cases. Well, the easy thing, in which I recognize right from the beginning, he's being attacked. You know, he's being, they're exaggerating certain things, making fun of. I don't blame him. The childness, for the reasons that they're happening, because it's mainstream media that's owned by corporations. So I never faulted him for some of the things he did, because I understood where he was coming from, having watched some earlier videos of him almost 2 decades ago, and just understanding he knows the entertainment. He doesn't really, it doesn't matter. If people don't like him, they don't like him. It doesn't matter what he's going to say anyway. So he might as well stick up for himself and do those things anyway. So that's kind of like the shapes, you know. There's the long story, there's the short story, and we can go round and round in circles sometimes by saying a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and there's way too much information needed sometimes in conversations to be able to, one side says prove this, the other side says, well, prove it's not, and you can go on and on and on, because that's just the way it can work. There's always questions, there's always nothing, in the same way of definitive and who says what, right? So that's kind of thing. But I have watched, not all of it, the frontline doctors coming and speaking out, and in some ways the facts and the numbers were wonderful, in a sense of, yes, children have a greater chance of dying in a car accident and driving than they would getting COVID. So it's clear that what's happening is children, this is a child psychiatrist, is the psychiatrist, I think it's Mark McDonald, yes, Mark McDonald, a part of that summit, was basically saying what he's seeing is a lot of sickness, even bedwetting, anxieties, yes, fears. It's all coming from the fear. To get back to fear, and he talked about a little bit of a story here, which were, patients of his, a psychiatrist, so patients. There was one scenario, by far this is not going to be every scenario, but the fact of the matter is, parents are going to work and the children are being left home and they're not getting the schooling. And in fact, I think there were some stats, I almost know there's stats, but I don't know what the number is exactly, where X percentage of children, a good percentage of children hadn't even logged in. So they had made school online, but a good number of people, and I don't want to say 50 or 60% if it's only 30%, but at the end of the day, education, or even the social side thing, I mean, education is education, but just the socializing and that kind of, the discipline of doing things, all of that is important. And so the online at home, for the most part, is not working. Just not working. In fact, I think they're making these mini schools now that the parents are going, well, forget, we're just going to hire a teacher who's not working, and we're going to do these, I guess, group schools. Well, they'll get a bunch of children together, and they're just going to be, taught at somebody's house. They'll figure it out. So the frontline doctors are coming up with a number of things. They came up with a number of numbers. So there was a time when you might have remembered Dr. Erickson coming on and say these were emergency doctors, he and somebody he was working with, and they said they don't see where the numbers of the hospitals are empty. And they decided to speak to a number of other physicians around the U.S. to see if they were seeing the same thing, which is a lot of emptiness. And now, probably there were some hospitals, and maybe in New York, where they were full. They didn't use the cruise ship. They were fine. They were busy, but they weren't at the stage of being full. I think they didn't use the cruise ship at all, or the boat, or there's some sort of a ship on the dock, and they didn't use that at all. So the idea is the psychiatrist was saying, reject the fear. Reject the fear. This is his way of doing it. And focus on making the right choices. And to me, right choices would be respecting others, coming together, eating properly, getting enough activity, some sort of a schedule with the schooling, the homework, not making it all about that. And yeah, they kept saying through this whole summit so far, from what I've watched, this is political, this is political. And they read a whole, there's a teachers union, and they came in with some sort of a document to say, this is what we want. And the end of the day, some of the things they were asking for had nothing to do with the children's safety, had nothing to do with the health, and everything to do with money. And what were some of the things that they talked about? Oh my goodness, it was so political and so had nothing to do with the children's health and education. Nothing. This was one of the things here. I just kind of try to make notes and points here and then bring them up. We've heard time and time again a mention about Sweden and comparing it with Norway, and you can compare until the cows come home. Lots of things to compare with, but the idea is, what do you compare with? So Sweden didn't isolate like the other countries did. I'm sure they got a lot of flack and people's thinking righteousness about what they had to do and what they should do, whereas Norway did. And similar things were kind of happening. Now, in Norway, they have less population. In Sweden, they have more population. In Sweden, they have more of an elderly population as well. So we've got to consider these factors when we're comparing, and even ask the question, what else? What other factors could be of importance when we think of comparing? But what Sweden did, and is a very, very important word, is they made it sustainable. So they could continue doing what they're doing for as long as they needed to, another year, a year and a half. What is happening in many of the other countries is not sustainable. So we're talking about economics here in a lot of ways, but also health, right? And the downside of when you keep people and healthy people isolated, and the fear, right? So the fears that have come about. I mean, you probably heard these stories. There's people that probably have still never come out of their home yet, not stepped out of their place of residence. And there was a number of elderly people that I spoke to, and their children forced their parents to stay in. They couldn't come out. They're probably okay with it. Let's go up to the rooftop or get some fresh air, get some sun. And they were being forced by their children, forced is whatever, to stay in their apartment. No balcony, just in an apartment. And yet, good intentions, people. We can't, good intentions, good heart, come from place, love, say, yeah, it all kind of matters. But that's the thing about Sweden we have to remember, is they put into plan a sustainable model that they could work with. Yes, could they have protected their elderly that much more? Absolutely. Could they have maybe done a little bit, maybe, but that seems to be the only regret that they have, is maybe taking care of even better those groups that are just more vulnerable, right? More vulnerable. But the idea is the fear still comes in here, people. The fear still comes in here because this is a man-made virus. Most people know this by now, and if you don't, do your research. The idea of putting the fear into people, and also having the movie Contagion, and also having said it in speak. Dr. Fauci says in 2715, whatever. Gates says it in whatever year. We're going to have a pandemic. We're going to have the biggest pandemic. We're not prepared for. How the heck would they know that? That's what I was talking about. The different possibilities. So the only way things could unfold is if they had some knowledge of this was going to happen. Believe it or not, one would have to do the long route to figure this out more and more of how that is. So let me just see what, yeah, could probably throw that in the garbage. All right, so I think one of the things, I'm going to post this video up. This whole area is not new. So when you see this video and you watch it with Jason and Chris, when you see this video, understand that this stuff is not new. It's not new. And that some keywords, and hi sis, some keywords may come up in this video that you've never heard of. Somewhere in the video they will explain some things. So you just kind of have to, I think it's an hour and 10 minutes, something like that. But it's worth the watch. There's maybe a couple of them that I will put up, but it's worth the watch. And yeah, but still, that video is only a slice and taken from now, which is why I like it. It's a recent video. So it's more of a slice now, kind of bringing into light what's kind of happening and what's coming down the pipeline. But there will be a number of things that it's going to come up, and you may have, some of you and I may have a lot of knowledge of it, and other people may not. So when you listen to, and there's different things, I know you probably will, what's this, what's that? There might be a little bit of research, or feel free to ask questions, comments, do things like that, privately, whatever, just to be guided to learn a little bit more of some of the things that are going on. But the idea is, and I know I've mentioned this to people too as well, is, how do I want to frame it? How I would say it is, over the years, over the decades, over the centuries, there has been what would I call acceptable behaviors or acceptable thinking. And this acceptable, when you've heard people say you're out of, you're just not in mainstream thinking perhaps, or you're not. So there's this kind of thing. And what I really kind of want to bring this around to is, this is the time to understand that is the way things have always been, the way things we think should be. Is, it's not old school, but it's almost like you've got to, if you had a water balloon, the only way you're going to change the way it functions, or the way its shape, right, what it's got, the hold on the water, is to start to put like pinholes in it. And what's happening to the balloon as you put the pinholes in is it starts getting smaller. So the way we think things should be is getting smaller. So the balloon, the water is continuously coming out. But what's possibly happening now, and going to be happening in the near thing, is that balloon is not going to have 10 holes in it. So you got these 10 kind of things you got to think of that are kind of out of the box. It's probably going to have 1,000 of them in it. Or in fact, somebody might take a scissor to it, and then at some point it's just going to collapse. The way we think we should think about things is just going to collapse for some people. And perhaps even for me, there might be the odd thing going, oh, but be able to stand back, and all of us, stand back and see, okay, so what's forming now? What's shaping now? It's not the balloon anymore. The balloon, we can't repair the balloon, or not that we want to. We don't want to repair the balloon. We just want to trash it and carry on with the new way of things are going to be kind of moving along. So think about it as let's be optimistic. Let's be positive. And that's easier said than done with all this different kind of news. But being in a place of positivity right now is probably the best place for any of us to be in, is to be positive and to listen. If you can watch it kind of unfold in a more active way, great. If you can't, go to your garden, go play golf, go enjoy and do all of those things, and eventually everybody will understand that the balloon has collapsed. It's not going to not be apparent to some people and not to others. Yeah, that's kind of what I would say there. Now, let me go through a couple of things here. Do you want to go a couple of things here? I am just going to, here's the title of something here. The deadliest virus in the world is communism. Now I want to step back from this video. I won't post it until I finish watching it. But the idea is a certain way of being on this planet is we have options. And one option is definitely like China, which we will label as communism, but we don't have to use the same label when we think of the whole global, country being under one bank and all of these things. Is that part of any name they call it, communism or the other, is that it's control over. So it's the people are going to do what we're going to say. They're going to have to do what we're going to say, or we are going to, in some cases, do as they say. We're going to taser you, if it's the police, or punish you, or something like that. And we're going to think we're all children, but essentially, that's what it'll be like. But the whole chipping, moneyless, they're all doing this in a communist country right now, China. I heard it was an experiment. They're kind of experiencing like that. Do the people actually? No, they have raised up, and but I guess when you have a lot of military, that's when you do. So we want to kind of think about what is kind of happening. It might come under different labels and different guises, as in this is what you're going to like about it. Hey, listen, if you can open a door and pay for something and it's all in your hand, I've said this as in studying the Sapiens book and then communicating, is that's all nice, but what else can they do? The upside, the positive, the good things come, they always will come in the situation of when we think of cashless society and stuff. There's a dark side. I'll call it dark side. There's a dark side to just about any of the things that the Sapiens was trying to convince the readers of. But I wasn't falling for it by far. So let me just think. There's a couple of other things here. I'm just here. Okay. So something just to be aware of, because this is like another pin in the balloon, that around the world, but not being communicated by mainstream media, is a number of peaceful protesting. And here, and it's a lovely video. It's on Twitter because I can see the symbol there. But according to the confirmation from the police of Berlin, it has been confirmed that between 500,000 to 1 million peaceful protesters, mostly without masks, demonstrate against the corona rules. And it's a great example for the rest of the world, for sure. So some of this stuff you might be able to find, and I can't see there being any less of it. That's the truth of it. There can't be any less of it because this is not natural. So if I always have to fall back to nature and what's natural, it's not natural to be forced to do these things. As one of the sayings is, my body, my choice, right? So the idea is we have so much fear about something that, yeah, cold exists, the flu exists, we know that, and we know that it's because we have brought our system down, that they can make the impact that they do, and to the point of death for some people. Unfortunately, we have to address the epidemic for that, people, for sure. The epidemics that are out there with cancer, diabetes stuff, we have absolutely have to do that. So Carla says they would be able to restrict people to do everything they want, where people would have access to shop and eat, and it's, yes. So the downside, the dark side, I'll call it, is the dark side of communism or whatever they're going to call it, and the various aspects of that, controlling where are we doing. I mean, a lot of this knowing where you are, your location, has more to do with selling your information for advertisers, okay? Manipulating consumerism, that kind of thing. That's definitely clear, but there is a dark side to that. There is a dark side, and a dark side to that is getting people comfortable through the technology that it is a positive thing to be able to know your every wish, because then they can, they can give you what you want. But it's a little creepy because there's other things, again, the dark side to all of this that we need to be aware of. Now I'm just going to go through and see what else there is. But what's coming up also more and more is being real. Being real. So whether that's a cooking show and a person's kind of making more practical, simple thing, the simplicities are going to feel a lot better for people, and a lot better for a lot of people anyway. If we think of foundationals, the basics, get back to the basics, balance, simple, keep things simple. What's this? I'm just going to kind of see if this was something I wanted to comment on. I don't think so. No, I've got about 4 videos that I'm kind of watching right now. I think for today, that is good. I tried to copy in some things from the open letter to the Italian government and members of parliament. Again, another show of the way people are speaking up is these court cases. So not just the protesting, but also the short cases and stuff. So yeah, that I haven't finished reading. So that's where I'm going to stay with for today. The idea is you're going to get out of it what you need to get out of it today. Was it informative? Was there one thing? Was it just kind of inspirational, just a reminder? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I mean, here Live at 5 is about all things healthy, and all things healthy definitely incorporate state of mind, how we think, just over and above your sleep, your activity, and what you eat. And this is something, what fear is, just kind of crumbles down the stone walls when we have to think about. And some people don't even have stone walls. They're like 3 little pigs. They have a house made of straw. And in that case, this is where the whole suicides come into play and how much they have come into play here. So if you think about the 3 little pigs and you think the wolf is fear, people have their where they're grounded and how they're supported, and it could be as light as a feather in some ways, and straw, and very vulnerable and very easy to blow over, and then you kind of get, the wood, sticks, whatever, and then you get to the brick. But I'm going to say that in this case, even if you had a brick house, it's being challenged. If you had a fortress, it's being challenged. And this is, and what have I heard some people, they're not into the COVID. Again, they're not believing in it as much, but yet they're just saying, just wear the mask. Just wear the mask. No, I'm not wearing the mask. I'm not wearing the mask, and it's not stubbornness. It's really just to, I was sharing with some people, if everybody wore the mask, just as simple as that, we care about everybody, we don't ever want people to freak out, what we would be managing to say to the group of people that are in fear, is that that's a good place to stay. That's the right place to stay. That's the right thing to do. And so by seeing people not wearing masks, we haven't put that concrete, like right now, it's not concrete. When people see, some people don't, protesting, they might, sign something or whatever. Not everybody's wearing a mask. More people are out and about. When they see that happening, it's it's really helpful for them. It may challenge them a little bit, but it's not putting the concrete around their legs, let's just say around their knees, not put the concrete around the situation. So it is of importance that we continue, some of us, maybe more of us, continues to be okay with the social gatherings, be okay with not wearing the mask, be okay with each other who are in this place of not being COVID sensitive, as some people will say, insensitive, sensitive, not sensitive. So not being COVID sensitive. And this is important because visual, most people are visual. And when most people are in that place of being visual, it's important what they see. Even if they don't like what they see, it's important that they see this. Does that make sense? It's important that they see that. It's a visual message. So if all of us were just to go, well, we're just going to do it because we don't want people to be fearful, we don't want to rock the boat, we want to respect, the people, businesses and all that, then if we do that, again, it's the concrete, or the stone wall starts to be built and that kind of thing. So I'm going to leave it at there today. I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful rest of the evening, and be calm, be at peace, do the things you love, have fun. I don't know if anybody had tea time or scheduled a tea time, but that's that's a very light way of kind of, again, gathering with more people, gathering with certain people that might, so that's kind of happening. You want to kind of bring in a gentle way more and more people that are coming out of, thinking that things are kind of opening up and it's going to be okay. I mean, the last thing I will leave you with, because like the protesting and like the court cases, another key area to be mindful here is the cases. And the death numbers are being challenged like crazy, people. With the Italy one, to be a reminder, only 12% of the people who died had COVID, died from COVID. Okay, only 12%. And in UK, I think I posted it, in the UK, the numbers that they have, they feel that that's way offside because they're coming out and saying, look, if you were tested positive with COVID, I mean, at first it was you tested positive with COVID and you died with COVID. You died from COVID. You're just part of the death number. And what they were saying in the UK, that if you tested positive and then you died from a car accident or something other weeks later, they're putting it down as a COVID case. It's almost ridiculous. Ridiculous. So certain people are getting a hold of this understanding and challenging it, and right off the get-go, just with two of these things happening, be it in the US, manipulating the numbers, Canada's probably right there, and then the UK, and then there's Italy, and you've got all these examples. It wouldn't be far from the truth that others might be very offside too as well. Anyway, we're going to leave it as that, and we're going to go from there. So I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful, wonderful week and day and evening, and we'll come back when minimally next Monday, but I will be away from Thursday to Sunday, so possibly something on Monday night. Anyway, take care, everyone. Bye for now.